Jamie, thanks so much for taking some time to join me today to talk about this really exciting search for Windward. It's been just a pleasure working with you and your team, and it's just such an amazing opportunity
Yeah, thank you.
and inflection point for both the organization and whoever comes in to take over the institute. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's start with you and your background and what drew you to Windward.
Yeah. Well, as I often will speak about in my sort of when I'm doing a lot of some donor work, I'm a recovering school psychologist. So I spent a number of years working in public schools, and I made my way to independent schools really because I love the idea of eliminating a lot of red tape in the work and actually being able to do the work. And so this is the third LD school that I've had a chance to lead. And Windward is really, of all the LD schools in the country and all the schools kind of doing similar work, I think we are really a unique school in and of ourselves. We have such an attention to the research and translating research and really focusing on getting kids what they need. The program that we've built here is really one of just such high fidelity and integrity. And that was for me what really kind of attracted me to this work. I'm a big believer that the adults in the system need to set aside a lot of ego and set aside a lot of self in this process of serving others in the work and making sure that our kids get exactly what they need. And we believe that what we're doing here at the Windward School deserves to be shared out writ large. And so the institute was established in 2019, my first year here. And that was really designed to expand on the work that we've been doing in the teacher training space, but also offer up an opportunity for us just to think about other ways we can expand our impact. And so we've done that through direct student work, direct teacher training, some advocacy work at both the state and local government level, in addition to some kind of big strategic partnerships that we've been able to establish with others, like the Haskins Lab out of the GL Child Study Center, or with the Promise Project, or with a couple other small school districts in the area here to help again. Make sure that we're getting out the work that we do here that we believe is what's right for children into the hands of more educators.
And the school and the institute have had such an impact, really, on the industry, and we'll get to that in a second. Just for somebody who hasn't been to Windward ever
Yeah,
before, walk them through the metaphorical, physical halls. Just talk about
yeah.
the school and the physical place, and then we'll get right into the institute after that.
Yeah. So when we talk about being one school, we despite the fact that we have three campuses. So up in Westchester, White Plains area, we have a lower school, which is our first through fifth grade, and then a six, seven, eight building with a small transitional ninth in Westchester. So about 600 kids in those two campuses. And then we have about 10 years ago, we made a real big strategic decision to enter into the Manhattan market because we had a lot of kids coming up from Manhattan to the Westchester campuses for years and years and years. So now we have about 350 kids in our Manhattan campus that we built about 10 years ago. So we cover quite a large geographical spread. I think that consider ourselves a New York City area school, but we're one of the only schools, if not the only school, that has a camp in Westchester and in Manhattan. And while we are still one school, each of the campuses also has its own little unique bits and sort of feel from a community standpoint. The Windward Institute main office has been based out of the Westchester Lower School at 1275, also known as the John J. Russell campus. And so that's where kind of our mothership of our business operations happens to land right now. Our development business office, HR offices happen to be our main admissions office. But many of us, like myself and our two associate heads, travel between all the buildings and make sure that we connect with families and students across all three campuses. But yeah, we're one of the largest LD schools in the country. We've also been one of the few who track the entirety of our student data. So when kids get here, we actually do the Iowa test, like literally day one and two during our orientation process. So we get capture where students are starting their journey here at Windward, and then we assess them on the Iowas every year after that. And then we look and actually send our data off to the Florida Reading Research Center. We have a researcher down there we work with who will run a big analysis of our data and look at the effect size on all of our areas. And then we look at the whole, so the entire, everybody who's been at our school in the last like 17, 18 years, we look at all that data in terms of the effect size of every kid who's gone through here. And now we actually pull out the year's graduating cohort to see how did that cohort do, and are they sort of trending above or below or at the historical averages. And for the last 2 or 3 years, we've actually been trending above those numbers. And so we have an effect size for our reading program is close to like a zero point 0.9. It's a high quality effect size. And then individual cohorts are putting into the 1.01 sort of territory. So some really big gains for kids over the time here. And then we have just an incredible level of academic support for our teachers and a 2 year teacher training program that brings them up to speed to help give them all the tools, activities, the language they need to bring, how to write good lesson plans, how to really implement direct instruction with a tremendous amount of fidelity and integrity to the quality of our program. And so yeah, so we don't leave a lot to chance here at Windward. We don't leave a lot of stones unturned, and we really provide just a tremendous amount of support for teachers understanding what to do and say in front of children in a classroom. And that's an area where we just really excel.
Well, honestly, I think you all excel in many areas, and we'll talk about that right now in terms of, and I know you'll be able to say this better than I do, but my sense is that the Institute is set up to help you improve the impact for the students at Windward you
Hmm.
just described.
Yeah.
And then in that sort of lab fashion for you to take the learning not just from outside but also inside and
Hmm.
bring that outside. And so the institute almost feels like that very natural kind of two-way conduit. But can you
Yeah.
talk really about the why behind the institute and what it's doing right now, both for Windward students but also the industry writ large?
Yeah. And I so appreciate that you brought up this idea of a two-way conduit because we do see these things working symbiotically. So the school on itself is really the proof of concept, right? The work we do here, the training we do, our sort of perspective on intervention, on how to translate research into daily practice. I mean, the school is that evidence on a daily basis. When we started doing teacher training many, many years ago, we know that like teacher training is one of the biggest keys to student outcomes, right? Having well-trained educators do that great work in front of kids and have the right tools, materials, strategies to kind of really do good work. And we have spent many, many years working to train teachers. When I was coming into this program, it was funny. Anytime I ran into an educator, almost 100% of the time, they were like, "Oh my God, I just finished. I took a class at Windward 2 years ago. Best thing I've ever done." Our writing, multisensory reading, and so we've had a really long track record of actually providing good professional development for teachers. When we started the Windward Institute, we really wanted to take that proof of concept, which was the school, and really help scale that up because we know that we can't continue just to build buildings across the country. It's a very expensive way to scale up, and we wanted to think about how do we really are able to reach into communities and help educators get lifted up, and also provide some really good support. And so we see the work we do at the school to inform the work that happens at the institute and the institute's relationship with the researchers, some of the best researchers in the world, quite frankly. The Fumiko Hefts, the Marianne Wolfs of the bunch here doing some really great work, the Phil Capons, to help us think about what's happening out in the research and how do we start to translate that into even more improved practice in the context of the school and what we deliver in terms of our Windward Institute work. But we want to make sure that we actually do a lot of professional development. We have sort of two trunks of our work on the Windward Institute. One is really about creating an ecosystem for teachers and professional development in the educational space, thinking about developing some asynchronous modules that are going to meet teachers' needs, working to make sure that we are providing some like custom PD for folks and some bigger workshops for people who want that work, but also too doing some coaching for teachers to help them really think about what they've learned in some of those modalities and how do they actually apply that in the day-to-day classroom because we believe those three things are really what's going to help net some really good results for kids. And then we're also looking and exploring a little bit around what we might be able to do from a student facing and parent facing sort of side of the work. we launched a free reading screening program a few years ago, and had a donor who was kind enough to endow that in perpetuity. So we just, like, for instance, we just had a screening recently. We had 42 families come through and get their kids screened. And so what we've developed is a bit of a toolkit for those families to be able to go on and either get a neuropsych, write the school district a letter, or find some tutoring support. So we've wanted to make sure that anybody who has a need has access to both the testing, the information, and the support that their child needs in order to have that kid really fulfill their potential.
I mean, it's amazing and really inspiring, I would say, that
Yeah,
all the things that are happening there. So now let's bring in this search and think about the next director of the Institute who's going to step in at a really exciting time
yeah,
where there's a lot going on, there's a lot of energy, there's also some vision and some thoughts going forward.
yeah.
Just help listeners who might be thinking about this opportunity understand what you're looking for and really what's ahead for the Institute and how you see the director guiding some of that vision.
Yeah, it is a very exciting time. When we launched the Windward Institute in 2019, we developed a kind of an initial strategic plan for that, and we really checked off every single box on the strategic plan. We didn't get the one thing we didn't do was have a 60-minute interview about the work we were doing, but we did get a nice shout out in the New Yorker this winter. So I feel like we can kind of check that, national media coverage box. But we've also had a lot of philanthropic interest in this, and we're right now in the process of actually recasting that sort of the next layer of our strategic plan, which will probably be like a 3-year focus, given where how the world's shifting and all the work that's happening in AI and how that might be leveraging some of the things we might want to think about or do in the context of some of our PD work. But I think that, as a leader, I'm an incredibly core value centered human being. Like, I'm a big believer that we have to show up in a way that is in alignment with the organization. And for us, it's really about that idea of growth and showing up and recognizing that I'm a human being who has a lot of strengths. And I also have a lot of areas where I need to work and grow, and acknowledging those things and working to do that and thinking about it from a perspective of, how do I get a little bit better today than I was yesterday? And so, and with my team, I work to be really collaborative. I want a good thought partner. I don't want to, I want to be in a space where we can work in concert and collaboration in service of the incredible mission that we've been entrusted with. And we're really looking for someone to help us to kind of come in. I would say to have some knowledge about the work we do, right? I think that to do work in the LD space, language-based learning disability space, I think you have to have a perspective a little bit and be an awareness of the work that's happening. I also think that we want someone to help us grow this out and have some entrepreneurial thinking here, and has the capability of leading a division of a nonprofit that has that will have a P&L, and make sure that we're really thinking about how to expand this work, how to make it sustainable long term, how to engage foundations and individual donors on this work, and really how to tell the story of the impact that we're having. And bring some good creative thinking as we're working with our board and with our community on how to really determine what places we're going to play and where we might have some wide open spaces to really have some massive impact in.
And I guess I want to close and bring it back to you and sort of talk about, your why. And I mean,
Hmm.
because I can just tell the palpable passion and energy you have for the work and the
Yeah.
opportunity and just, the ability to change kids' lives.
Hmm.
Um, just tell me a bit about, what brought you into this or
Yeah.
what fuels you so someone can get a little better sense of
Yeah.
your flame, your inner flame around the work that's happening here.
Yeah. I talk about this with our new teachers actually in our opening orientation with our new faculty coming in. I ask people to raise their hand and see what camp people fall in. So, because so often in education, I think you have people who grew up, they played school when they were a kid, they wanted to be a teacher from your early age, and they love school themselves, right? And I asked, so who in this room really loved their school experience? And inevitably, you have so many people who raise their hand and are just, oh my God, that was my story. I played school, I had the stuffed animals, or I had my little cousins I would play school with. I was always trying to teach something. I was the teacher's helper. I love school so much. And I absolutely love and adore those folks. That was not my experience. And so I asked the follow-up question, and I really encourage people to be open and thoughtful here. And I said, how many people in this room did not have a good educational experience? And sheepishly, a few hands will go up, and I raise my hand really high. And I talk about how, you can't show up with assumptions based on your experience, right? So if you loved school and then you assume all kids love school, you're going to be wrong a big chunk of time. And if you didn't like school and you assume that everybody's like you and no one likes school, you're going to be wrong also a big bunch of time, a lot of the time. And so I really wanted to like kind of ground folks in this idea that, part of the reason you're here is to really understand children. And a big part of the reason I'm here is because I did not have a good educational experience as a child. I didn't like school. I never felt like my teacher saw or sort of heard me in a way that I wanted to be heard and felt, and saw the great potential that I offered. And so I wanted to be an educator that never let any of my kids fall through the cracks in that way, right? I wanted to be the one who saw a kid who was struggling to connect with others, who was struggling to be seen and heard. And that's been sort of like for me a massive part of the motivation here. And also when I was deciding on graduate school, I was actually working as a case manager in Cincinnati, and I was in an IEP meeting around with a foster care child who had a severe language-based learning disability and had been in like probably 6 to 8 different foster homes. And I'm meeting at this high school, and with this school psychologist and assistant principal. And I'm watching this school system have so little interest in meeting this kid where he was. And actually to the point where I left the meeting not just like angry, but like heartbroken, to be quite honest. And I was a psychology major, and I really knew I wanted to go into graduate school for psychology. And I was still trying to figure out where I wanted to land. And that was actually the day that I decided, like, me working in schools and being a change agent for schools and being an advocate for children was right where my heart was, and I needed to be there. So, and I haven't looked back, to be quite frank. And then the extension into independent school is really a space where we get to focus on kids' needs, and I get to do so without thinking about anything other than where is this child? How do I meet them where they are? And how do I give them the great research based strategies and tools to get where they need to be? And I'm a big systems level thinker. And the higher up in the system and the more impact I get to have, for me, the better off I have always been for just from how I see the world, how I see kids, how I see our role in education. So yeah, so I love this work. I love the work we do. And for being in schools like this for the last 18 years, I tell you, it does not get old when a parent stops me and says, "Oh my God, you won't believe." That's almost always how they start. My child would not read a book 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago. And then it's now like really engaging, and they're happy to come home, and they're getting out of the car in the morning, and they're standing up straighter, and they're talking at dinner more, or they're sharing more with our friends when people come over and talking about that. Like those are the things that I think that being here, I don't feel like I go home in a day where I feel like we've let down children. Like I feel like the exact opposite. Every single day I get to walk through this door, we change children's lives. Like that is sounds high minded and like, oh yeah, like all this sort of flowery language. But I have to tell you, our kids here get exactly what they need and deserve. And I just love being part of a community that's actually so dedicated to doing the hard work. Because a lot of places will can do this in a way that focuses on the adults in the system, and it's probably a safe place for kids. They're probably doing all right work, but I think what we do here is we do the heavy lifting to make sure kids are getting what they actually need in the process. So it feels really good.
Well, well said, and we look forward to doing some of the heavy lifting to help you find another amazing person to join the Windward team and to help lead the Institute at just, again, this
Yeah,
really exciting moment. And want to thank you for your time and your energy and your passion and your insights today. I think it'll help a lot of people get a sense of where you're headed. So appreciate it,
yeah.
Jamie, and look forward to
Thank
working with
you.
you on the rest of the search.
As always, Gabe, thank you so much. Appreciate the support. Look forward to meeting some folks along the way here.
Got it. Wonderful.